1, 2, 3, 4. What up, y'all? Babylon 5 Podcast. It's your boy, Jermaine Event. This is episode 203. Calling this bad boy Du Raciste. Alright? In honor of the middleweight fighter, the openly racist, Dricus du Plessis. I'm gonna call this bad boy Du Raciste. Du Raciste. This is episode 203, ladies and gentlemen, of the Babylon 5 Podcast. About a month away from 4 straight years of week to week. Just every week for 4 fucking years. Pardon me. Been doing this podcast. Even on vacation. I go on vacation and I record the podcast on vacation. Every week for the last 4 years. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. I don't know. I don't think this is going to be a pretty long episode. So we're going to talk about we'll briefly talk about the fights from last night. UFC 290 just happened, International Fight Week. And maybe I will touch on next week's card, which is headlined by Holly Holm versus Mayra Bueno Silva. That does not sound like an appealing headline. But we're going to talk about it. If you guys want to follow this podcast on Instagram and Twitter, it's at Babylon5Pod. You guys can email this podcast at Babylon5Podcast@gmail.com. If you guys would like to follow this podcast on Twitch, head on over to twitch.tv/Babylon5. If you guys would like to cop some merchandise, head on over to teespring.com/store/BOFpod-shop. And lastly, don't just be my Niji, be my patrons. Head on over to patreon.com/Babylon5Pod and you can be my patron today. Come on, be my patron tonight. Come on, be my patron tonight. Anywho, UFC 290 last night. We're gonna get right into it. In the main event, Alexander Volkanovski successfully defends his featherweight belt via TKO, finishing Yair Rodriguez in the third round. And Volkanovski is just amazing. We all know this. I think he's pound for pound the number one fighter in the world for good reason. He's just amazing in there. You know, from what they were saying, the game plan was to just never let Yair get in rhythm. He just kept coming forward, feinting, throwing shit at him. He always wanted to try to disrupt the rhythm and not let Yair really get going. But I'd say by the third round, Yair was trying to throw hella kicks and really make an account for himself, but he ultimately was finished by Alexander Volkanovski in the third round. Volk is saying, that he had a face-off with Ilia Topuria post-fight. He's saying he wants to fight Islam Makhachev. Charles Oliveira was interviewed. He said he's not gonna be ready by October when they go to Abu Dhabi. He's not gonna be ready in time to fight Islam Makhachev. So there is a chance that Alexander Volkanovski fights Islam Makhachev next, or he defends his belt against Ilia Topuria, the undefeated Ilia Topuria. Both fights are interesting to me. Volkanovski is easily one of the best fighters ever. I'm down to watch Volkanovski fight whoever, whenever. He's just the man. So congrats to the GOAT, the current GOAT, Alexander the Great Volkanovski. Yair will bounce back, but it's just this is my thing with, it's almost like with Robert Whittaker, but the thing with Volkanovski is he's just so good that losing to him doesn't really show you the scale of where you're at. Like Yair versus Max Holloway, that kind of showed me where Yair was at, where he could maybe he wouldn't get ran through in one round, but I was sure that he could make a decent account of himself in there, and I would say he did that. But Volk is just at another level. So Yair coming in as the interim champion and leaves with no belts, but we don't know what Volkanovski does after October. October can come, and Volkanovski faces Islam Makhachev, beats Islam Makhachev, and now he's the lightweight champion. He moves up to 155, and then Yair has a rematch with Max Holloway. Like, that could be the case, but yeah, Volk is just the man. I just want to see that guy fight all the time. I was happy I got to see him fight Max the first time. When he first won the belt, I was there for that fight, so I'm pretty happy about that I got to see such a great fighter live. Alexandre Pantoja defeats Brandon Moreno for the third time. As I said, Pantoja was the underdog coming in here, and I was like, yo, if this was a state where you could do that kind of shit, I would bet the fucking house on Pantoja, because he's already beat Brandon Moreno twice coming into this fight. And surprise, surprise, Alexandre Pantoja gets the job done for a third time. Why did I say the Jabba? Gets the Jabba done for a third time. Jabba the Hutt. Jabba the Hutt. Brandon looked a lot better in that fight than he had. You know, he's improved so much, but Pantoja just has his fucking number, man. Pantoja has his number. You can't. I would see no reason to justify having a rematch, an immediate rematch between the two. It was honestly one of the best fights I've ever seen. Pantoja Moreno 3 for the belt, 5 rounds, was one of the best fights I've ever seen. But with Pantoja beating Moreno 3 straight times, I don't see how you could justify an immediate rematch. I'd like to see Pantoja fight Brandon Royval. And Moreno, I'm not sure. Anybody, he just fight somebody else again, but I don't see him getting an immediate rematch for that. Pantoja just has his number, man. In the most shocking turn of events, and I said to you guys last week, I pulled up the stats, and I said, man, I was like, just looking at fights, it would seem like Dricus has no chance against Whitaker. And then I pulled up the stats pre-fight, and I said to you guys, man, if you look at the stats, one could surmise that Dricus has a really good chance of beating Robert Whitaker. That's what I said here. I was like, damn, if you really look at the stats, look at the numbers tell you he had a great chance of winning this fight, and just as the numbers said, he was all over him with the volume, took him down, beat him up on the ground. It was just as the stats said, and Dricus du Plessis defeats Robert Whitaker in the second round via TKO. And then Israel Adesanya steps in the octagon. And he's just like, what's up, my nigga? What's up, my nigga, my African brother? You my real nigga. Like, and Dricus du Plessis, who is the person who needed, for the life of him, he needed to have some division between he and the black fighters from Africa. He repeatedly separates himself and Cameron Simon as we're the white South Africans, and we are not the same as the Nigerians. You got the Nigerians, or the, I'm forgetting where, Cameroon, Francis Ngannou is from Cameroon. It's just, Dricus du Plessis needs to repeatedly put out there's a difference. Me and those black fighters are not the same. This is the message that Dricus keeps putting out there, and it's so fucking gross, dude. Like, it's so fucking gross. When, cause Izzy, it seemed a little drunk, and he's just like, what's up, my nigga, yada yada, like, you my brother, right, my African brother. And Dricus replies with, yeah, I'm African, but we're not brothers. And it's like, yeah, you're once again needing to somehow put out there, like, we are not the same, man. What's up with Joe Rogan's hands? His hands look wild. Like, all these different shades. Like, they're super dark at the top, but then it looks like the skin is peeled off around it. What's up with Joe Rogan's hands? Anywho. Yeah, I hope Izzy just beats the shit out of him, but, Dricus looked a lot better in that fight than I thought he was going to. He really utilized the jab. I think it's the southpaw jab on Robert Whittaker, because I was watching the Weasel break it down. As Whittaker, like, steps in, he, like, kind of sprints in and tries to use his speed, but he doesn't, like, he doesn't try to hand fight. He doesn't, like, try to use combinations to close the distance. He just kind of blitzes in. And apparently, yeah, Jared Cannonier was able to exploit that in the third round and land that jab he picked up on as Whittaker was just charging in. And he was catching him with that jab, catching him with that jab, catching him with that jab. And it was just too much for Robert Whittaker. Duplessis took him down, beat him up, cut him pretty bad on the side of his head. It was just all over this man. It was kind of shocking to see, because from what I feel like I know about fights, I felt like Whittaker should have ran through him. But as I said, when I looked at the numbers, man, I was like, whoa, man. I was like, this isn't what I feel like I've been seeing from Dricus. But when I look at the stats, everything told me that Dricus had a really good chance of winning that fight, and he gets it done somehow. So congrats to that racist fighter, Dricus du Plessis. Cameron Simon knocks out a black fighter, and Terrence Mitchell. I bet that was one of the happiest days for these racist, Cameron Simon and Dricus. They were very happy to beat black people, to just put hands on black people. Dan Hooker defeats Jalen Turner via split. I think this is kind of controversial, right? One judge scored it for Turner. Turner was winning. He won the first round clearly. The second round he was winning. He was looking like the better striker. But I tweeted out, I was like, dude, Hooker needs to go first, because there was moments where he was going first, and when he was doing that, it looked like he overwhelmed Jalen Turner. And I believe at the end, I think it was the end of the second round, Hooker caught Turner with something, and it like froze Turner, and the commentators didn't even mention it. So I was like, man, maybe I didn't see what I thought I saw. But it looked like he kind of like stunned him there. And it didn't seem like Hooker picked up on it. He didn't like try to capitalize on the moment. So I was like, man, maybe that's just not what happened there. And then the third round comes in, and Hooker puts it on Turner, damn near finishes him. Like, he locked in a choke at the end of the second round and almost choked him out. Once he finally put the pressure on him, it was pretty over. But like, Dan didn't really put the gas on until like the last 30 seconds in the second round. So one could surmise that Turner essentially did more damage in the second round, and Hooker just had that spurt at the end of the round. But two of the judges, that was enough to sway the round for Hooker. Hooker defeats Jalen Turner. I believe I heard something like Hooker broke his arm in there and somehow kept going. So hats off to Dan Hooker, man. He's a tough motherfucker. Bo Nickel dominates Val Woodburn. Beats him with strikes, which it's not surprising to me. Somebody you know who has this wrestling acumen. You're constantly worried about them shooting for a takedown. trying to take you down. So it left Val Woodburn, the newcomer Val Woodburn, all like wide open for strikes, and he gets finished by Bo Nickel in 38 seconds. That's his first loss of his career. Val Woodburn came in here 7-0 versus the 4-0 Bo Nickel. Bo Nickel improves to 5-0. Dude, that record is absurd. It's absurd to me that he's in the UFC. We're supposed to say, like, these are the best fighters in the world. That boy is 5-0. Like, let that boy go somewhere else, build up a name, and then come back here and tell me he's one of the best fighters. But, like, dude, he has, like, no fights, and you guys signed this guy just because of his name. What he did in the wrestling world. This is silly. Robbie Lawler defeats Nico Price in the first round, 39 seconds in his retirement fight. Robbie was emotional the whole time. He was like crying coming down to the octagon, crying after the fight. They played a video package in honor of Robbie. Dude, it was a real touching moment. Happy trails to Robbie Lawler, man. Great way to go out. Denise Gomez knocks out Yasmin Uruguay. She came in here undefeated, like pretty hyped. She's one of those like newer Mexican fighters. There was like the two ladies out of Mexico that they were like they put in like those premier time slots for fights like maybe a year ago. And she was one of those ladies that were showing a lot of promise, but with the first punch in this fight, pretty much a flash knockout. It's a 20-second fight. Denise Gomes defeats Yasmin Uruguay. Alright. Alonzo Menifield submits Jimmy Crute in their rematch that ended via draw. The last fight, Alonzo Menifield should have won, but there was a fence grab and a point deduction, which led it to a draw. And Alonzo Menifield gets the job done in this one, submits Jimmy Crute via guillotine choke or something like that, some kind of gator roll. I don't know if that was a guillotine, the way it was turned over like that, but Jimmy Crute is seems to retire. Takes off the gloves, comes to the middle octagon. It looks like he's done. I don't know. I thought he's relatively young. He's 27 years old. He apparently just retired. He's 27 years old. Well, I guess he probably is looking at the fact that he's currently on a 3-fight losing streak. His last fight was to Alonzo Menifield, as I said, but it was a draw because of the fence grab. He otherwise would have lost that fight to Alonzo Menifield. So he's lost. I mean, I don't know if this is cause to retire. Menifield's good. The fight before that, he lost to Jamal Hill, who is the current champion. Fight before that, he lost to Anthony Smith because he fucked up his leg. I think these are good people to have some losses again. He's got some good wins against Bukowskis, Oleksiejczuk. Oleksiejczuk's a beast. He's got some good wins in here. I don't know if he should retire at 27, but it looks as if Jimmy Crute is done. Jimmy Crute is done, man. And I just want to look at this briefly. Next week, we have UFC Fight Night home, Bueno Silva. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe home wins that fight. Does it really matter? I don't really care for that fight. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm not someone who dislikes women's fighting. Actually, I'm more interested in Norma Dumont versus Chelsea Chandler, which is a little further down the card. Newcomer Chelsea Chandler gets her biggest test against Norma Dumont. I really like Chelsea Chandler, dude. She's just out of Stockton. Stockton, motherfucker. She's got good wrestling. She's pretty strong out there. And this is a pretty big jump up in competition for Chelsea Chandler, but the only way to find out if you're ready is to get out there and do it. So I'm hype for that fight. probably more than any other fight. No, and that's not the fight I'm most hyped for. There was something else in here, I believe. Could have sworn there was another fight where I was like, oh shit. Maybe not. Maybe I'm Nah, I think that might be the fight. Terrence McKinney's fighting next week as well versus Nazim Sadikov. Ashley Evans Smith returns. Tyson Nam returns to action. I thought there was somebody in here. I was like, oh shit. Nah. Estela Nunes versus Victoria Dudica. I think Dudica's about to do it. She's about to do this nigga. Victoria do this nigga. Yeah, it's pretty, it's not the most attractive card, I would say. It's not personally the most attractive card, but it's happening next week, whatever. Watch it if you will. I don't know if I potentially will watch it next week. As I was saying, like, I've done this podcast for every week for the last, essentially, 4 years. In 1 month, it'll be 4 straight years. But I am going to put this podcast on a hiatus indefinitely. At first, I was thinking, like, maybe just a month. Maybe 3 months. But I just want to see how I feel. I want to just not have this thing here that, you know, when I started feeling like if I'm going to give predictions to fights, then I need to be aware of everything. I need to watch all the news. I need to watch all the fights. I need to follow these people online, see how camp's going, who they're working with. I need to just make my whole life researching fighters and fights, and I've essentially come to the conclusion, it's like, dude, do you do anything? People are, you know, throughout the years, people are like, oh, what'd you do this weekend? And it's like, nothing, man. I was watching fights. And I was okay with that answer for, I guess, years. But as it's becoming really evident right now that I'm just not into it right now. I just like to live a little bit, maybe even 3 months, maybe for a year, maybe forever. Maybe this is the end of this podcast as we know it. Maybe I do other things. But this will be the last episode for a little while. At least. Like, there will be no episode 204 next week. Alright? That's not happening next week. 204 will maybe happen whenever I decide to come back here, but I'm not going, for a brief moment, I want to be unaware. You know, sometimes I'm on Twitter and I see people asking questions, or even if I see people interviewing other fighters and they'll ask them these certain questions, and I'm like, and I already know the answer to these questions, because to me it's just like, do you even follow this sport? Do you even follow this sport? And then it's just like, you're following it too much, man. You're following it too much to the point where you're not giving yourself any time for anything else. It's good that those people aren't aware what this motherfucker ate for breakfast. It's good that they aren't. It's better for their mental health. It's better for my mental health that I just chill out for a second. So the podcast is, Jermaine has gone fishing. Podcast is officially on hiatus, but we will see. You know, I'll reassess some things and see how we come back. I really like this YouTube shit. Maybe we don't do podcasts and I just do something with YouTube going forward, but I don't know if this can be what I do all day. and not get paid to do it. Like, if this was my job, yeah, I would fucking love to do this. But as a motherfucker who's married, and I work full time, and I'm trying to, like, put out music, make beats, rap, write all these songs, and I gotta fucking make sure I'm watching everything in MMA, all the signings, all the fucking everything. Oh, it's Dana White Contender Series on Tuesday. I need to watch fights on Tuesday. Oh, PFL's has a card on Wednesday or Thursday. Bellator on Friday. It's like, fuck, bro. I mean, I knew it was a lot, and I was into the challenge to do it. But it's just, I feel a little burnt out right now, to be honest with you guys. And there was this interview where, I remember Izzy did the whole, like, to the media, he's like, I can do your job, all right? I can do your job, but you can't do my job. And then I was watching Luke Thomas's live chat, and Luke Thomas was talking about, like, yeah, you can do the job, but can you? He's like, I've given up virtually every Thursday for the past 20 years. I mean, every Saturday for the past 20 years, given up every Saturday, and that's me 4 years straight, essentially, of I can't do things on Saturday. People be like, yo, this is going on, and it's like, dude, there's fights. I have to watch these fights. I have to live react to these fights. I have to, like, do this nonsense. It's not nonsense. It's, if you want it, you want it. I'm thankful for the people, the friends that I've made within the community online. Thankful for all the people I've met. Some real cool people. Yeah, it's just time to take a little break here. So you will see my face, definitely hear my voice in the near future. But this podcast is on hiatus after this episode. Your boy is gone fishing. So if you guys would like to follow this podcast on Instagram and Twitter, I think I'll still tweet and post some things occasionally. Follow your boy at Babylon5Pod. You guys can email this podcast at Babylon5Podcast@gmail.com. If you guys would like to follow this podcast on Twitch, head on over to twitch.tv/Babylon5. If you guys would like to cop some merchandise, head on over to teespring.com/store/BOFpod-shop. And lastly, don't just be my Nijis, be my patrons. Head on over to patreon.com/Babylon5Pod, and you can be my patron today. But thank you guys so much. Everybody listens to podcasts past 4 years. Thank you guys so much for being here. As I said, everybody I've met throughout this, all the support I've gotten, really appreciate you guys. This isn't the end. Unless I die before I plan to come back with this podcast, this isn't the end, but it's the end for now. So I hope everybody is... Sorry, I'm just... I was like, I don't know, I was getting a little emotional just thinking about this last night, and I'm trying to just say this without getting choked up, but yeah, I'll see you guys when I see you. I hope you guys in the meantime are taking care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you when I see you. I'll holla.